So while doing this presentation, while kind of researching everything, I went through lots of different questions about protagonists, and I sort of ended up with the question, the way I want to talk about the way authors use protagonists to prove a point. And you know, when we're younger, when we're in first grade, you learn protagonist is black and white. Protagonist is the good guy; they're the ones that do the right thing. But it's more complicated than that, and that's kind of something that we learn as we go along. And so the evil protagonists, they exist for a reason. The author wants them to prove a point about humanity, about the world, about the people who read those books. That evil in those characters, it's more shocking. It's something that can jar a different sense into the readers and everyone that looks at them. The first book I read was American Psycho by Easton Ellis here. And the main character is Patrick Bateman. He's a high society, elite kind of guy, but at night he's like a serial killer, he's crazy. And this book kind of talks about the evil of power and how it can change a person. And it's actually interesting, Easton Ellis, when he published this, created a lot of public outrage. People were saying how awful it was, and he defended himself by talking about the way that this psychotic kind of way of writing the book changes how it is. But in a TED Talk by Philip Zimbardo, he was the leader of the Stanford Prison Studies, he talks about how power can change a person and how power can make you evil, and evil is exercise of power. And how he talks about like a bad apple versus a bad barrel. And in A Clockwork Orange, it's kind of interesting because it's kind of like a bad apple in a worse barrel. So he's this main protagonist, Alex. He's evil, but he really just loves violence, and kind of shows him learning how his choices really mattered to him because of the way he was changed, so he could no longer do the violence he loved. And so Burton was really trying to talk about how that choice is really the most important aspect, and you can choose to do evil. And that sort of brings into this other TED Talk I listened to, The Science of the Moral Code, where Sam Harris talks about how there is a right and there is a wrong. We always think of morality and science as different, but they're actually very relatable in the way that the world kind of sees that there's good and there's a bad. Both of these authors talked about desensitivity to violence and how they used their language. They used, in Clockwork Orange, they used Nastat to kind of, and then in American Psycho, they used like psychopathic language to kind of compare how in our society today we don't look at violence as such an awful thing as much. It's something that we're more attracted to than anything. And so it's kind of like looking at how this evil protagonist can draw in people, and it's interesting to see how they are compared.